Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Gem and today we are heading back into the ink house to have another little go with our Inktense pencils and say hello to Geraldine. I'm kind of hoping that we might get finished up today. It's been a wee while since we've been in here. I've been pretty busy with other things. Here we go. And quite frankly, I am, to quote my mother, I am frazzled. There is way too much going on just now and I'm just feeling a bit worn down, I think is probably the best way to describe it. I have been thinking about this a lot though, and I have decided that I'm not going to put any colour in the background. It's just basically to keep in the aesthetic of the book. I talked a wee bit about this before, but the book is very clean. You know, there's a lot of clean, crisp areas, either with a black background or a white background, and I don't really want to take away from that because the actual images themselves are quite detailed, and I think by adding really busy backgrounds it's going to detract from it a little bit. So that's my thinking, and then you've got pages like this, so that's my thinking. And I've also decided as well, I'm going to do this entire book in Inktense, and I think this might be my next front to back project. I have finished Enchanted Forest now. That will be up for your perusal in a couple of weeks as part of Cavemas. So if you've been looking forward to seeing the finished book, you don't have long to wait now. I want to thank you all very much for your input as well on what's going on down at the bottom here. I'm still not convinced about this. I do think it's part of a chair, but it's not part of this chair, so it may be another chair. But if it was the chair, if as the viewer we were sitting in one of the chairs, then I'm sure the pattern would go in that direction, not that direction. But I'm going to colour it as fabric, as I have started with these other ones. I think that is very sensible indeed. So now that I've had a wee bit of a brain fart, I have kept out the pencils I was using for the fabric, and I thought that would be a good place to start. So just to recap, the colours that we were using were Cherry, Shiraz and Chili Red, if you are following along, and I know a few of you are following along, so I'm sure you'll be glad to see this video up too. So I'm going to carry on with this upholstery first and get that done, and then we'll go back to the roses, and after that we'll get into the slightly more interesting stuff. So if I just sort of squish over here, now remember I've done this hard part already. For the striped parts it was Cherry and Shiraz that I was using, and then for the paler parts I was going into the Chili Red, and we can go from there. So yeah, I'm really hoping today, with my experience with the channel, is that any time that I've felt stressed or I've been in a really bad mood, the coming into this book and doing a wee bit of colouring chat with you guys has always put me in a much better mood. So I'm hoping that's going to kind of help me a wee bit today. See, I'm just not firing in all cylinders at all. We'll get there though, we will get there. The other thing as well is my nails on this hand are really, really stained. I've been painting in my kitchen. The kitchen is just, it's just a complete nightmare from start to finish. Like that, that's just the way it is. Everything that could possibly go wrong has gone wrong. So I've got the Shiraz now, and nearly everything's had to be sort of done twice because of things being sent that are wrong, you know, like wrong parts of the kitchen. And the most recent thing was we decided to get a painter and decorator in. We really wanted the kitchen finished for Christmas. That was like the primary goal. We were really worried that it wasn't going to happen. And for whatever reason, it's got tighter and tighter for time. Obviously, we're well into December now. So we decided we would get a painter and decorator in to do the kitchen walls. So we did that. And unfortunately, both of us, me and Mr. Gem, we hate the colours that we've picked. Now, it's us that picked the paint. We decided to go for a teal colour, as discussed, and that is the colour that's stuck under my nails now. But rather than doing it on all the walls, because it has a low ceiling and it's quite a dark room, we thought we would go for the north and south facing walls. We were going to make the teal colour, and then the east and west facing walls we were going to have in like a much paler colour. So when I picked the colours, I just went through the colour swatches, and it stuck with the same colour family. We got like the lightest shade, and we had it all painted. And when the painters had finished, we went in, and they must have seen my face because they just looked at me and went, "You don't like it, do you?" I think it looks like a swimming pool changing room. Like, that's the only way could describe it. And Mr. Jem thinks it looks like an ice cream parlour. On the flip side though, we both do really like the dark teal colour. It is lovely. I'll show you a photo here. The photographs don't really do it justice because when you take it with the camera, the light balance picks up and it looks really blue, but it's more greeny than that, but it's nice all the same. Like, it really is, it's lovely. So we decided what we would do was we would keep the teal and paint around the fireplace wall, because we have a fireplace in our kitchen, because originally we had that the lighter colour and it was just the chimney breast that was dark teal. We've decided that we're going to do that, and the opposite walls are just going to be white. So that's what we're in the midst of doing. The painter and decorators can't fit us in. Again, obviously very busy run up to Christmas, so we're having to do it ourselves. So been back and forth with that as well. I'm also trying to get Mama Gem's room finished as well. She had picked out paint months ago for the guest bedroom. Okay, so back to the cherry here. Now I'm going to have the same problem in here, so I'm just going to do as much as I can with the pencil up to a point, and then I'll push it in with the water brush again. So I've got 2 walls left to do in Mama Gem's room, but she's picked a very, very pale, like kind of almost like it's not quite a dusky pink, and it's going on top of magnolia, and we've bought quite good quality paint, so I'm only needing to do 1 coat, which is a godsend. So I'm hoping to get that finished as well. So I've got quite a bit of painting to do, because I say under the lockdown restrictions being lifted, Mama and Papa Gem will be up for Christmas for a few days, all being well. You know, things could change before then, I suppose. But yeah, that's the plan. So I would really like that done for her coming up. And she doesn't know that I've done it, because she was going to do it herself, you see. So that's the state of play. Our new fridge freezer is dominating our sunroom, because we can't put the fridge freezer in the kitchen until the floor is down, and the floor is not getting fitted until the 23rd of December, which is just a disaster in itself, but you can't do anything about it. So, and more to the point, Mr. Jem has parked the fridge freezer in front of my painting easel, so I can't get into my painting easel. So yeah, we're very discombobulated. So I like an upshot of that is I actually haven't put many of my Christmas decorations up, and it's just because the downstairs is in such an upheaval. I don't really know like where I'm putting things, and I can't visualise things, and because it's the first Christmas that we're in this house, oh dagnammit, that's kind of like making things more difficult as well. I can't fit, where are all my erasers? There isn't even an eraser at my desk. Still haven't changed the batteries in this. Okay, that'll do. So that's just the house. We've found another leak in the sunroom roof, which seems to be an ongoing theme, and we don't seem to be getting anywhere in remedying that whole situation. So when it rains heavily, we have to move furniture. It's not cool, and because we're into the colder weather now as well, we realised that even with the new kitchen fitted, the kitchen is so cold, and we've found drafts everywhere, so that's going to have to be fixed. Our joiner is having to self-isolate because his wife has tested positive for COVID, so he's not going to be coming back for another like week or so yet. Again, really close to Christmas. So I've just kind of, when it comes to the house, I'm at my wit's end. I've had enough. I've just had enough. And it's times like these where I wish we'd never taken the risk and moved. I keep picturing being in my old cave in my old house, and it was lovely and warm, and the house was like walk-in condition. But the thing is though, this is something that we had to do for ourselves. And although it's been a complete money pit, once we get there, it's going to be really good. Like, it's going to be amazing. But I'm just kind of struggling with it, because obviously this house, we moved in February, and we have just basically been fighting this the entire time since February, and it does get quite wearing after a while, like it really does. So especially when you've got the COVID situation is making things increasingly difficult, just because it's very difficult to get things from suppliers and stuff as well. So yeah, I'm just a bit worn down with it. Right, let's get into this. Now, I'm going to try and get like a kind of lighter bit, like a highlight. So I'm only going to put the Shiraz down the bottom to get that curvature, and then this part here. On the plus side, I hate like coming on here and just like moaning, like I'm all doom and gloom. Yeah, well, you guys know I'm not normally this bad. I'm not normally like this. I'm normally a lot cheerier. On the plus side, I do have all my Christmas shopping done. I'm usually quite organised with stuff like that. I like to be organised, and I don't like to be running about at the last minute. And all my Christmas shopping is done, so I'm kind of hoping that if I get my painting finished in the next day or two, and over the next week, I can just get everything wrapped and then it's done. And then I don't have to worry about it anymore. That's a possibility. So that's pretty cool. But we've kept Christmas presents to Mr. Jem and I have kept Christmas presents to a minimum this year, just because we're spending a lot of money on the house. So, you know, we're not... Normally, we don't go ham at Christmas, but we really don't buy things. And Mr. Jem especially never buys himself anything, ever. Like, he's just not that person. So at Christmas time, I always buy him, you know, nice things. I kind of spoil him a little bit, but he deserves it because he works hard all the time. But this year, as I say, we've just decided to kind of like stick a cap on it. Just so that we can continue on with our wild plans for the house. So I've left a little gap of white there, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this colour into the centre with my water brush. I say we'll sort of tidy this up and make it look a bit more appealing on the second layer, but just sort of get that idea there and see how that dries. I don't know what I'm going to do about this little corner. I think I might have to take straight off the pencil. I don't think I've actually done this with this, but yeah, if you just sort of rub your water brush on the tip of the pencil, the colour will transfer, and then you can just use it straight off the brush like that. I'll do the same in here, might as well use it up. And the same for this chair part down the bottom. Now this is tucked under the table, so it's going to be darker. So I'm going to be quite heavy with this pencil, even on this first layer. And for the other colour, really get that in there. But with the Shiraz, I'm going to just rub a little bit of that Shiraz over both sections, the light part and the darker striped part. I need to get a scrap of paper on the go here. I've normally got one beside me. Okay, that's good. Good. Okay, so we'll leave that to dry a little bit longer, and I'm going to come back over here to these roses, and it was the poppy red that I was using, which is more this, you can see it's a little bit more of an orangey shade than the chairs. And I decided, again, I kind of sat and squinted at this for a while. I'm just going to go all the way over. I was going to start putting leaves and things in, but I'm just going to have it all the same. There is no other green in the picture apart from that tiny little bit in the book. And to be honest, I just think it's more fiddly than it needs to be. So I'm just going to whack this down. And I'll spend a little bit more time on individual sections. So I'm trying to follow the contours of the petals on this, and I'm not just going back and forth with my water brush. I'm trying to work in these little sections so that if there are brush strokes, at least they make sense. And that's the really nice thing about using Inktense on this kind of thing. There's lots of convenient places to stop, because I've mentioned this a couple of times already. You do have to work quite quickly. So if you're just working in these little petal sections, then there's lots of places you can stop and, remember to breathe. I do that quite a lot. I noticed it the other day when I was painting the kitchen wall. Naturally, me being me, I was not going to start taping up edges. I just eyeball it and freehand it. That's just what I do. But with that teal colour, it's quite dark, and against white, if you have a wobble at any point, it really shows up. So when I was working round along the ceiling line, because the ceiling's white, I actually held my breath the entire way along and then didn't realise why I felt so stressed out about it. I was like, need to breathe. Forgot about the breathing part. Okay, there we go. That looks pretty good. Right, I think while we're leaving that to dry just for a wee moment, I want this to be absolutely dry before I start going back in. I need to figure out some sort of wood colour. What I have decided I am going to do is the interior part of the table here is going to be wood along with the outer edges. And the same round the chairs, and then I'm going to have this sort of fancy lip here. I'm going to make that gold, and then the studs gold as well. I think if I was to try and make this top part look gold, I don't think I would get the sort of the desired effect, if you like. And the other thing that's kind of stuck in my head as well is that the front cover has this lovely gold on it as well. So I'm going to be using some metallic paint for that, which I'll show you in due course. And if it's something you don't have, you can use a gel pen or whatever, but we'll talk about that. I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's have a little look again at our Inktense swatches. So I'm just thinking about a base colour, and I think I want, in my head, if it was in real life, I would start with the oak, but that is going to be quite dark. So I think I'm going to jump to saddle brown and mustard as the base colours, or maybe even willow, because willow's quite warm as well. And then use the oak as, you know, like for some detail. That might work quite well. Mustard's too yellowy. I might even go with a combination of willow and baked earth. Yeah, let's try that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try this out on a scrap of paper first. I'm not just going to go straight in because I don't want to ruin it, because the picture's going really well. So let's just say this is our tabletop. So I want to see what would happen if I just did something like this to begin with. Now when you're doing this, if you're going to add in any sort of texture, you need to think about it and think about the material that you're trying to emulate. So in this case, it's going to be wood for us. Now obviously I would imagine that this would be polished within an inch of its life. It's quite a fancy table, but so let's just pop that in there. So I've got a one that looks like, oh, this, throwing things away. My hand's been hilarious these last few weeks again. See, because the colder weather's in, my hand's just got a mind of its own now. Obviously, it's a lot stiffer in the cold weather, but I just like throw things about and drop things and all that kind of stuff. And 9 times out of 10 it's funny. I have noticed it start happening with my cutlery now as well, and that's something up until about 4 or 5 months ago I'd never like a fork had never flipped out my hand involuntarily, but it's happened twice now, so I don't know whether that's going to get worse as I get older. But thankfully there was no food on it, I guess. But it's just, you're like, whoa, okay. I seem to do it with pens a lot more though. Don't know how I feel about that. Okay, let that dry. I think the baked earth is too red. Right, so let's excuse me, let's just look at this upholstery. So I do want this part up here to be a wee bit paler because I think there might be some light hitting off of that. So I think, I'm going to grab the chili red again. So it was cherry up here, so we'll just do a little bit more cherry on here. And then as we come down to the bottom here, I'll grab this chili red, because that's naturally going to be darker as it tucks down into the base of the seat. Right, let's see how this goes. Might just use the big brush while I'm here actually. So I'll start with the lighter colour. Just bring this down a little bit more. And then I'll dip down into this darker part and bring this up the way. There we go, that's what I'm talking about. So you can see how rich that looks now. That's exactly what I wanted. Now I'm just going to employ the same method down here. I'm just going to do it with the chili red because we're right in at the corner here, and it's just a really awkward spot. And just start at the bottom there, flip it up the way. Do a little bit of the same on this chair over this side as well. Just pop this in O's, as Mr. Jem would say. And then a wee bit along the bottom here. Bit of an involuntary hand twitch again there. Okay, I've decided from this drying that I'm just going to put a layer of willow down first on the chairs and this sort of wooden area. So we'll go with that, and then I can build up a little bit on top of that. That's been chuntering away in my brain in the background when I've been doing this. Oh my, right, where is my Shiraz pencil? I'm kind of getting a bit bogged down with lots of different reds here. So I just want to get this part finished first. So I'm doing basically what I did with these parts, just with the stripe parts now. This one in particular over here needs some more something. And then grab the chili. I can't do much about that little corner in there, which is kind of annoying me. Just a nice flicky motion there. And again, just off the end of the pencil for this sort of tucked in part. See, not that you really see that, but I just feel like it should be done. I'll grab a little bit more of the chili as well, because this part here looks, although I want it paler, it looks pretty wishy-washy. I'll settle for that. Right, there we go. That's looking much more like it, much happier with that. So let's focus on these roses for a wee minute. And then I'm putting all the red pencils away because I'm getting muddled now. So for this, because we're working in such small areas, I'm going to go straight from the pencil. I better change water brushes as well, Jem. That might be a good idea. I use my little water brush again. So I'm starting with the chili red, bearing in mind it's poppy that's down here. Yes, I'm not going to take too much time over this, but I do want to pick out a few spots, and then I'll use a darker colour again on this left hand side. Sorry, because the light source is coming from over there. Now we can just build up that vibrancy very, very gradually. So again, back with this Shiraz for the bulk of that. So while that's drying, I'll jump over to this willow pencil that I've just been talking about. And I'm going to start over here. And we'll get a nice light layer of this down. So I'm going to keep my pencil strokes and my brush strokes going in the same direction because we're thinking about the grain of the wood here. Now I'm not being too careful around my little studs here because I'm going to be painting them. I can cover up any of my erroneous ways with my pencil. That's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. All right, so that's I'm reasonably happy with that as a base coat. So we'll come over here now and just do these parts here. So this is the table leg. We'll do a little bit more work at the top of this chair here. There's like a sort of ornate design, so we can do a little bit more with our pencil in there. Okay, in terms of the inside part here of this table, I'm deliberately not sharpening this pencil and I'm going in little circular motions because I do want this to be quite smooth, and it's just because it's a larger area. I will obviously want to add in detail and texture, but I would quite like a sort of even base layer to begin with. So I'm going really gently here. There's a little patch in there. See, I nearly forgot about that there. Oh, what was that? There's something stuck to my paper there. Oh well, we'll have to make that part of the texture. And again, I'll go back, I'll deal with all these little intricate bits on this right hand side here afterwards. A massive sigh from Chalk there. He is asleep. Okay. Right, let's zoom out a wee bit, I think. I do want to go back to my roses now. They are dry. So I'm going to grab the Shiraz and let's just get in there. See, especially on this side, you know, we're really going to around here is going to be a little bit darker. I'm not as heavy-handed with it there, but pressed a little bit harder over this side. Fairly happy with that. And I'm just going to do this bottom edge of the table as well. I was waiting because I'd just done this part. I wanted to make sure that was dry before I went careering back in again. So just going to grab this here. And I'm going to have to sharpen this up to get in some of these little gaps in here as well. I may not even activate them with water. I'll see how much they stand out compared to, you know, by the time I finish this flat part here, we'll see what it looks like. I've got a funny feeling I will need to go in though. But we'll deal with that in due course, it's fine. So with this, I'm trying to keep my strokes as horizontal as possible here. Not always possible, especially in some of the tighter areas, but we'll see how this goes. So by doing this, I'm just kind of encouraging the fact that there's going to be some sort of grain design here. I'm trying to make sure that I'm pushing it right up to the tea set, you know, that I'm not going to have too many of these sort of halo effects because I've not gone far enough in. Took that a wee bit too far there. All right, lovely jubbly. It's better to, if you're not entirely sure where you're going with something, it's better to it's better to practice on the smaller parts. So for the edges of these chairs, this is where I'm going to practice. So that was the willow. I want to introduce a little bit of oak, which is the much darker colour. And it's got a little hint of green in it. So there are obviously, you know, these are sort of grooves that have been cut in to the wood to make them kind of like more ornate. So I'm just going to start by sticking some in there, but I'm going to put in kind of like random lines as well. Kind of digging that. Now, my feeling about that is that in those lighter areas where I haven't gone in with the oak pencil, I want to build up the willow a bit more and just make it a little bit more intense. So I'm going to wait till that dries to do that. But when I come over here to this one, I'll do the willow and the oak together. So if I start with this oak again, now this is going to be slightly different because there are, you know, there are these sort of little areas in here, but I'll pop them in first and then maybe a few extra lines in here. And then I can grab my willow again. And that's basically just going to be like a second layer. So I would say I'm medium pressure now. Before, you know, when I did the last layer, it was very, very light. But I'm pressing a wee bit harder now because I really want some of this colour and warmth to come out. You know, I don't want it to be a really sort of wishy-washy layer. Okay, so let's try that on this side and see how it goes and see how it compares to the one on the other side. Oh, here's the sunlight. Damn you, sunlight. Yeah, so you can see what I mean about the warmth compared to over here. That's exactly what we're going for. That is what I was looking for, everyone. Yes, much happier with that, so I'll carry on in that vein for the rest of this wood. And we'll get it looking really cool. So I think I'll do the legs and everything first. Just thinking about the facets of this chair leg, this inside area is going to be darker because it's facing... Hi, Woo! Little dog has been asleep for hours. She's just toddled through. So this side's going to be much darker, so I'm going to take the oak all the way down there. Like so, and then on this outside part I'm just going to have a little bit, like maybe here. So we're much more willow than oak. So grab my willow again. Again, can't do too much about this corner because it's tucked right in at the page, but I'll do my best to get it in there. And then the same here. Ooh, squeeze it in there, come on, in you go. And then we'll do this little table leg here. There, so you can see what I mean about the two-tone of the table leg, and it gives that impression that there's one side. This is actually quite handy that the sun's shining, it's in the wrong direction. But if I do that with my hands right now, this side looks a lot lighter than this side because it's in shadow. So that's what I've done, but just the opposite way round, down under here. Okay, so again, thinking about this light source, this area is going to be much lighter than over here. So we will still use both pencils, but we want to distribute the two colours differently. So in this part here, there's maybe going to be like a little bit of willow, a little bit of oak. And then just as we work our way round, that might come more frequent and a little bit darker. And then at this end here, we'll have a lot more of that oak pencil. And then we'll really go for it down here. Lovely. Right, now just to finish off this tabletop, the other thing that I want to think about as well is the shadows here. So I'm just going to pop in some of our oak lines. Now I'm imagining that the more refined part of the wood they would keep for the tabletop, and the one with like the least knots in it and things would kind of make sense. I just want to pop in a little bit here and there. And then with this willow, I'm going to make this a little bit lighter than we have done. Now I'm going to stop here, and this is a good place to stop just because there's a shadow line there, and I just want to see, because I really don't want the other lines, I want them to be really subtle. I might have to go back in with that oak pencil. Oh. No, do you know what? No, I'm quite happy with that. Okay, so I'll just keep going with my willow. I'm just trying to keep these pencil strokes in roughly the same direction. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not that pernickety. Is that the word? That's the word I'm going to use. But again, the same with my brush strokes as well. They don't have to be perfectly parallel, but if we kind of keep going in roughly the same direction, it's just going to add to the effect rather than take away. I always really enjoy doing wood textures because there really isn't a wrong way to do it. As long as you're going roughly with the grain, of whatever direction you want the grain of the wood to run in, there's really nothing that can go wrong. And I think that's why, because I find it very relaxing drawing trees and graphite as well, and it's just because, well, you can kind of do what you want. Okay, I'm actually much more happy with that than I thought I would be. If I just zoom in it out a little bit. I'm glad I've done this now, and I know in my head I made the right decision, because I was contemplating going for a shiny surface, and I was like, if it goes wrong, it's going to ruin the whole picture, and it's absolutely not worth it. So I just want to let that dry off a wee bit. This hopefully is a wee bit drier down here. I want this side a wee bit darker, so I'm just taking this oak pencil, and I'm just going to run in there with it. And I'm not going to reactivate that, I don't need to. And that's like it's a tiny little detail, but it's just something that I notice. Try not to put my hand in the bit in the middle. I'll just a flicky motion here, and I'm bringing that round to about there again. There might be a wee bit of light that hits, that particular curved part of the table. I'm also thinking as well with these little spaces, again, if I just zoom in a wee bit more, see by the time I've put the gold down, these are going to be negligible. I'm just not happy that it's going to be enough. So I'm just going to quick do a couple of these and activate them and see what happens. Because they do become a little bit more intense when you've, put water on them. Yeah. Okay, we'll go with that. Okay, while that area is drying, I'm just going to go and grab my paints and show you what you can do and what I'm going to do. Right, what I've got here is the Gansai Tambi Starry Colours set. I've had these paints for a long time and I use them a lot. I actually probably use these more than the rest of my watercolours. Take from that what you will. If you don't have something like this, that is absolutely fine. You can grab a gold gel pen, and what we'll do is in the darker areas, because obviously we're going to have light and shadow on the gold parts as well, and a prime example of that is this curvature here. And this inside part that's facing in towards the middle of the table, that is going to be much darker. And what you can do is you can still use your gel pen and just take a grey or a graphite pencil and just do a little bit of shading over the top, and it's going to have the same effect. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use two different shades of gold paint, one for the dark areas and one for the light areas. So you can see here, I'm going to use probably the red gold for the shadow areas. And then I'm going to use one of the other ones for the rest of it. That's it, I had to shut the sunlight out, it was getting ridiculous. Really shouldn't complain at this time of year. Okay, so first things first, let's do the easy bits first. I'm just going to give these a wee spray. Got my little scoosher bottle here. Atomizer, I think is the correct word. Just wipe off the box round about. Okay, so I'll leave those there to do their thing for a minute or two. See how... Okay, my table's quite dry, so that's good. Right, okay, so now we're thinking about some of the shadows on this table here, and it just helps to make these items look more grounded. So you can see that Mr. Dobner has already put lines in, so I'm going to use the willow, and I'm just going to stick some of that down there. I think that shadow may extend past there, but I'm going to grab the oak as well, because I do want this to be a little bit more obvious, so we'll just get some of that down in there, and I'm just going to repeat this process for pretty much everything. So the likes of here, we're not going to be able to see much here, but here's our little sugar bowl. I'm going to bring that forward a little bit, and again it just helps to make the items look as if they're actually sat on the table. Can you see that? And it's very obvious that there is a light cast from that direction now just by doing that. I do feel like this side of the table though needs to be darker anyway, because it's not going to be getting maybe as much light, because all this stuff's in the way of the light source, so that's going to be blocking some of the light to this side of the table. And here we go, we'll do a little bit of this here, and under these books as well, just a little bit there. Now I'm not going to activate the rest of these shadows, but I'm going to do the one under the milk jug just because it's been inked in. Right out, I had a quick pit stop there to speak to Mr. Jem. His cows have all escaped. So yeah, that's I've had to go and give him a wee hand and we'll get them all back in, but it's fine, it's done. This video's been epic because it's taken me ages. Right, as I was saying, I'm not going to activate these shadows here, I'm just going to leave them as is because they're looking pretty fine. So I want to jump straight into this gold here. So I'm going to work from the right hand side. I'll zoom in a little bit more. About here maybe, and doing these little studs is just a case of blobbing some paint on. So I'm using the yellow gold here, and I'm just going to try and be as accurate as I can with my little water brush. And one of the things you can do as well, if you're using any type of metallic medium, if your hand isn't that steady or you feel like you're not that accurate, you can always go back with a very small black fine liner if you want to put the line work back in, if you go over the top of it a wee bit. So there's loads of things you can do, and don't be scared that you're going to mess it up or anything, because you don't need to. But this is, so for me especially, knowing that my hand can be a wee bit unpredictable sometimes, this has just been a case of practice and patience. And the slower you go, the more accurate you're going to be. So I have, after spraying those paints, I did let them sort of dry up a wee bit. So I've got I'm almost like at a paste consistency. Now you're not going to be able to see much, but if I tilt that in the light there, you can see that we're starting to get that little bit of metallic glow, which is what we want. I've got these ones down here as well. Again, we're kind of in at the squeeze it in. Oh, there we go. That's nice. Okay, so I'm thinking about this edge now, and the light is going to catch here. So I'm going to go in with the lighter gold colour here. And I'm going to bring this all the way around. Oh, see, this is fun. This is the fun part. Now, I tend to find it's easier to do this in sections rather than going all the way around and then potentially putting my hand in it, which, let's face it, I'm pretty good at that. I like to just go a section at a time, and just because of the nature of this paint, it's not, you're not going to, like, your joins aren't really going to show up an awful lot, so it is easier for me anyway. But I'm sure everybody's different with that, and y'all will find your own way. So I'm just trying to do these little sections. This is quite fiddly, like that, you know, this is, I think this is probably about as fiddly as something like this is going to get. So I'm just going to stop there. And in this section here, I'm just going to do my best to work around these little tight areas until I get to the point where the brush actually fits in between the gaps. So there we go, I've got enough room now to manoeuvre the brush in between the spaces. And that brings me to the end of that sort of first section that I've done. Again, if I just tilt it in the light, oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And then I can go into another wee stretch here. So my plans for the rest of today are ridiculous. See, with Mr. Jem and I, we've got some personal stuff going on just now, and it's kind of taken over. So the rest of my day-to-day comprises of housework, more housework, and if I can get to the painting of the rooms, then I think I will be very surprised. If I'm honest, I will be very, very surprised if that's the case. I'm not holding out much hope, in truth, so you know, I just kind of feel like I'm tired. I'm really, really tired, and I just seem to have like this endless list of stuff that needs done. And I'm not really getting any respite from it. At the weekends, I don't work my proper job at the weekends. I don't work a Saturday or a Sunday. I could if I wanted to, but I think I do enough. So basically what happens is everything that I don't get done during the week, aside from my proper job, you know, if I don't get any chores or anything done, my reward is that I get to do them at the weekend. I really don't, if you include the YouTube stuff, which I do spend a lot of time doing, probably more than I should, I actually just don't have a day off ever. I don't take days off. There's always things needed done. I know everyone's life is like that in a sense. But it's then when Mr. Jem comes in the house and says, my cows are broken out, can you come and give me a hand? And you're like, oh, okay. So, but it's kind of his own doing this weekend, because he's given all the boys a weekend off. They have been working super, super hard, and Mr. Jem is the kind of boss that will put everyone else before himself. So he is literally on his own today. Which, that I say, it's his own doing, it's his own fault. But the upshot of that is if something goes wrong, it's me that gets dragged into it. I'm like, yeah, okay, great, thanks. All fun and games till somebody loses an eye. I'm just really glad that we're not calving this year. Normally at the old place, we would have started calving our heifers by now. I don't know whose idea that was. That wasn't Mr. Jem's design, because we just kind of like went with what was there before. And it meant basically you're calving over Christmas, which, you know, you could just do without that. But here we've got nothing calving until January, so at least we don't have to deal with that right now, which I am so, so thankful of, because that can get quite stressful. And we do try and let the girls do it themselves. We leave them to their own devices as much as possible. But if you are going to have labour problems, it's usually the heifers, because they're like the first time mums. So that's why we calve them first. Just so that we can give them a little bit of extra attention and they're not in amongst all the rest of the cows, so that if they do need assistance, they have our full attention. This will be our first calving here ourselves. The heifers had nearly finished calving when we arrived in February of this year, so this is really the first time that we're doing it on our own. So we'll see how it goes. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's not like we don't know what we're doing with stuff like that, but you're just always a little bit nervous for them. We've got all the bulls in together now. The bulls have been with the cows. We only use natural service. We do not artificially inseminate. I am heavily against it for various reasons, which I won't go into. But all the boys are together over the winter months. They don't get in with the girls, obviously. And our oldest bull, which was a bull we brought with us, he's sort of hanging about by himself. Normally what happens when you put the bulls all in together to begin with, they have a bit of a ruckus and they sort themselves out, get their pecking order. Sometimes a few injuries, but nothing major. And the oldest bull, he has just decided he's not getting involved. I think he's just at the age when he can't be arsed anymore. And he stood by and watched all the young ones sort of scrap a wee bit and sort themselves out. And he was just this sort of nonchalant onlooker. But what we have noticed is that he's kept himself to himself. He keeps away from the younger bulls altogether. So I don't know whether he just thinks he's too old now to be getting involved, or whether he just doesn't give a monkeys. Either way, he's fine, and he's like hanging on the periphery of the group, but he tends to sort of stay by himself, which is that is not normal cattle behaviour. They are herd animals, but the fact that he is sticking with the herd, but he's just not necessarily in amongst them, he just goes and kind of does his own thing, is quite interesting. So we're keeping an eye on him. He's definitely not getting bullied or anything. We know he's not getting bullied because he's got no injuries or anything on him. But he is so much bigger than the younger bulls as well. Like, he's huge, and he's always been huge. So again, it might be a case of the younger bulls are thinking to themselves, I don't fancy my chances. We'll just let him do what he wants to do. So we haven't actually figured out who is alpha male. We know which one is the dominant one out of the younger ones, and he's one of the more sort of fiery tempered ones, but he has had no interactions with this old bull, so it's quite interesting to watch. I always find it quite interesting. But they're in a nice wooded area, miles away from the cows, and they seem to be quite happy, so that's good. But see, I'm keeping an eye on the old boy. I feel for him. Right, this is starting to look quite nice now. I'm enjoying this. So now we come to the debate where this is going to be a darker section. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to be quite brave here. I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to take off this yellow gold that I've been using off my water brush. Just take it away. And I'm going to dip into this red gold, and I'm just going to sort of merge it together. This might end up looking stupid, but I can always put another layer of the yellow gold on top, you know, if this is too red. But I just think it helps to show the curvature and that sort of light and dark that we were talking about. So let's see what happens here if we do this. I'll just sort of blend it in there. These are water-based paints, so just like normal watercolour. Might just get away with this. Might just get away with it. Now, if I make sure it's not a complete, you know, change, like a sort of sharp line, you know, if I add in a little bit of this red over the top of the yellow gold, just in a few spots here, that helps the transition a wee bit. And I think I'm going to get away with this because they are quite similar. Depends how much of it, oh, that was a bit heavy-handed. Jeez, oh, Gem. Yeah, that's going to be totally fine. Cool. Love it when a plan comes together. That is so, like, the difference in that is so subtle. You can, like, oh, it's just so slight and it's perfect. I am so pleased with that. So pleased. Right, okay, for this back part then, I'm just going to re-wet this red gold. It's starting to dry out a little bit. Just give it another scoosh. And we've got this inside part here and here. And I am going to turn the book upside down. Come on, Geraldine. And it's just so I don't put my hand in this bottom part until it's absolutely dry. So over here, I'm just going to do this inside part here in this red gold. And this is like, oh, this is such a tiny space. Such a tiny space, but we're going to do it. We're going to do the doing. Yeah. And then I can just work my way along these sections here, trying to make sure that you can still see what I'm doing. You'd think I would have got the hang of that by now. How long have I been doing these colour and chat videos? What happens is, though, you get kind of carried away with yourself, especially like me if you're talking as well, and you just kind of forget what's going on for a minute or two. And then before you know where you are, you've moved along the page, but you haven't moved the page, and everyone's like, can't see what you're doing, Gem. Can hear you describing it, but we still don't know what you're doing. Oh, we're getting there. We are getting there. Oh, need a bit of balls up of that, didn't I? I have to say I am thoroughly enjoying this book very, very much. So I would just like to take this opportunity once again to thank Cal very much, because she gifted this to me. And it's such a beautiful book. It really, really is. And I find, obviously, it's full of animals, which is right up my street anyway. But Rory Dobner has stuck to a reasonably realistic art style for this. And that is something, obviously, it's something that I like to do as well. So I think that's probably why this appeals to me so much. Aside from the fact it's just a really pretty book. Right, okay. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Okay, I'm all about that. Right, I've got these little spines on the books as well, and I'm just going to use this same, so it's the red gold again, so that's the dark one that I've been using. And on the bottom book, the red book, I'm going to use that for these little embellishments. I'm leaving the paint a little bit more watery so you can just see those hatch lines showing through and no more. Oh, my tummy's rumbling now, oh dear. I have not been eating well lately either. This is the other thing, and it's probably a reason why I'm so tired as well, because we haven't had a kitchen, or we've had a kitchen that's in various stages of disrepair. We've been eating a lot of fast food and things, which is something we're not normally guilty of, but it's definitely made me feel really sluggish. And I dare say I've probably put on some weight again because of it. So that's another reason why I'm so desperate to get this kitchen finished. I just want my kitchen back. Okay, there we go. That's a good start with that. And then I think Christmas is coming and I'm like, oh, you're going to eat even fatter. It's almost time for me to crack open, just speaking of calories and getting fat, it's almost time for me to crack open my Christmas Jack Daniels, which is a Jack Daniels Fire. I get a bottle every year. It's like a cinnamon flavour and I love it, and that's Christmas for me. Anyway, right, so I'm going to grab the blue gold here. I'm just for something a little bit different. It's not going to be blatantly obvious, but I just don't want all the gold parts the same. So I'm just going to use that one on here. And we've got this, what's its face here? This little bowl. So I'll use the blue gold, but I'm going to do the same as I did with this fancy part round the outside. And when it comes to the darker side, I'm going to go back to the red gold. So let's pop this in here. It's just a bit more of a delicate metallic. So I'll put a layer of that down there. I'll just concentrate on this bowl part first. And then I'm just going to go straight into the red gold. That's really, really thick. I need to water that down a little bit. And then blend it in a wee bit here. Get that nice transition. Yeah. Okay, good. And this looks like it's kind of at an angle because there's a lot of shading in there, so maybe pop some of that in there too. And I'm just going to head down this left-hand side here with the red gold. That's all the way down in here. So I'm using this a little bit more in a diluted sense so that you can see this the hatchwork still popping through. And then I can grab this blue gold again and just work my way down this side. I think we are finished. Heck, missed a bit. I've got my studs to do over here. Getting carried away myself. So that was the yellow gold, which is this one. It'll take me 2 minutes to finish this off. Get these done in here. Oh dear, that didn't go so well. There we go. Right. Okay, so now if we look at our 2 pages side by side, they look rather fetching. And if you start to tilt in the light, you get that lovely sheen from the gold paint, which I just love. And it's that thing I like to do. I like to put little metallic accents in my colouring pages. It just makes them that little bit more interesting. I have had so much fun colouring these pages. I really, really have. And I hope that you've enjoyed them. And for those of you that are following along, please feel free to share them with me. You can share them on Facebook or Instagram. I would love to see how good a job you've done. And yeah, that's kind of it. So this is actually a really nice time to finish up on a colouring chat series. Once we go into the new year, we will start something new and see what little adventures we can go on with that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this book, on Inktense pencils, on what's been going on here, or what you have done as well if you've done the same pages. I want to thank you very much for watching today, guys. I really appreciate your patience as well, and the fact that you are supportive of me in a time when things are getting pretty hairy. So I really, really appreciate that. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you back in the cave on Thursday for another video. Have a good day everyone, and bye for now.